Welcome to my little happiness question and answer show where I'm really excited with Len to try to answer your questions about life. I think everything to do with life has an effect on our happiness. So that includes everything from the environment to finding your purpose to even talking about God. All these things, if we understand them better, affect our happiness for the better. If you've missed the live show and you're watching a recorded version, don't worry, this happens every Friday, 7 to 8 p.m. UK time. You can go to bigquestionsanswered.com, which you can see somewhere down there. There we go. For past and previous or future shows, etc. Just a few seconds about myself. I love to be logical, but I've got lots of influences in terms of spirituality. Len, would you like to say something about what your spiritual influences are, what affects your answers?
Hi, good evening, welcome. Thank you for having me on the show. Yes, I come from a long-standing Christian background, which I at some point abandoned to embrace Gnosticism, the mystical traditions, Hermeticism, the esoteric Kabbalah, astrology, etc. So all of that is pretty much and now hypnotherapy. All of that is wrapped up in this little blanket. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. This is a crazy timer that we've got here. I don't really know what I'm doing, but anyway, let's get on with a question from actually. You know what? I haven't put the right question in the right order. So the topic is about togetherness and happiness. So I'm going to start talking about it. Let me. Oh gosh, there we go. I'm gonna. Yeah. I don't know how I didn't put the main question up there. I'm just going to hide it. Okay, so the topic is togetherness and happiness, and how can we improve in that? That is so important nowadays when we are in a society that, even though we're surrounded by people, we're still so lonely. And one of the reasons, well, first of all, is togetherness really important? Psychologists tell us, for example, that one of our key or basic needs as human beings is to be connected. What does that even mean? It means to truly relate to other people, to be able to express your loves and sadness, and spend real time with each other, not just sending emojis to each other and actually having deep conversations about things that are really meaningful to each other. So that is really important, and you should probably check things like Johann Hari's understanding of he's written a book on Lost Connection, which is a fantastic book. Just check it out on the internet. It talks about all these things that we need to be truly happy, and one of those things is this idea of connection. And one of the reasons why I'm talking about togetherness is that it's Eid. So I'm celebrating Eid. Yes, it doesn't look like I'm celebrating Eid doing a show. The rest of my family are doing, running around having fun. I'm enjoying this, actually. I should say that's really important, because being helpful to people is key to my own happiness. Just want to throw that in. But the reason I mention Eid as well is that Eid, like Christmas or any other celebration where you've got some level of organization to say, come on guys, let's all get together, let's spend some quality time together. That is so important. And often we say organized religion is a really bad thing for doing something like that, but that's what organized religion does. It gets us together. So in Islam, for example, and you would find in Judaism and Christianity, knowing your neighbor is so important. And all these different religions have this fantastic way of saying hello, which is peace be upon you, or in Arabic, assalamu alaikum, or in Hebrew, assalamu alaikum. Beautiful ways of saying what it basically means. Besides peace be upon you, it means I promise to be at peace with you. I wish you no harm. I wish you all the best. I wish you that from my heart. And just saying those kind of things really connects people and makes people together. And if you think this is all wishy-washy stuff, I mean, I remember there was one time I was feeling a little bit serious going towards Ersfield Station, my local station. There was very serious people there, quite central London. And I just saw somebody who smiled at me, some old lady, and I smiled back. And suddenly I was like noticing that I was still smiling afterwards. That's a tiny thing. Really affects our happiness. I'm a big fan of travel shows, and some guy went to somewhere in Bali, Indonesia, and he was like, I'm so happy here, and why am I so happy? I'm trying to understand it. It's just that people just say hello and smile at each other. He called it energy. You can call it energy or whatever you want, but it's just like just people smiling and caring about each other and being grateful to each other and for having each other. So that's another thing. And the last thing I want to talk about is the reason why people don't spend time with each other or make time to really connect with each other, because they have a short-term view of happiness. They have this materialistic way of looking at happiness, which is instant happiness. But developing relationships takes time, and all religions are all about the long term. And Islam, for example, says do things consistently, even if they're small. And if you have that kind of way of looking at things, if you have a bad relationship to begin with, you just keep working on it tiny step by tiny step. So thank you for listening to that. And Len, would you like to have a go at answering this general question about relationships?
Indeed, yes. Relationships. The key thing to understand relationship is that we have to be invested. What you put in is what you get out. So be invested 100% when it comes to maintaining and building and working on relationships, whether it be a romantic relationship or a friend or a family or relative or any other form of business relationship. It's always about what you put in, and that's what you're going to get out of it. Now, we do live in a toxic world and a toxic environment, and very often such toxic environments do not promote a very good social environment, a very good positive social experience. So it is important to get out of that toxic environment, and especially some of the workplaces we tend to be in. If your job is to be a soldier in the military somewhere, I can only say good luck. It's going to be tough. Some of those are the most toxic environments to be working in, and at soul level, that's not what we should be doing. At soul level, we are all connected. We are all one. And I've heard the saying, they say that when you kill someone, you kill a part of yourself. And very often a lot of these soldiers come back from whatever war zones they're in, and they suffer from PTSD as a result of all the toxicity in that kind of environment. So there's a verse in the book of Psalms that are really beautiful that portray this and puts it very nicely. It says, behold how good and how pleasant it is for the people to be together, to come together and enjoy companionship, enjoy that togetherness. And you know what? That is there's a very healing experience that happens when people come together in a good, positive, energetic environment. It brings healing to the soul. It becomes a nurturing environment for us. I find that our souls on this level, there's an exchange that happens, but on the physical plane on this level, even when you go into a coffee shop, you may be talking to your partner, your colleague, your friends on this level, but there's another conversation happening at soul level on this level above. And very often you may not even be consciously aware of what's going on the soul level. So we enjoy being together on a physical level, but there's always that energy exchange that happens at soul level that's subconscious. So that is something I learned over the last 10 years. And this is part and parcel of being in a very good, positive environment with friends, with family. Whatever the reason it be, whether it's a birthday, whether it's in your case, whether it's Eid, whether it's a celebration, a festivity of some kind. It's always a good, positive environment to be in when you are together with people like that. It takes you out of that toxic situation. And the one thing about toxic situations is they never promote a good, positive social experience for anyone. Then that's even in the IT world where I used to work in banking, where you sit in meeting rooms with people, where everything is fear-driven, ego-driven, it becomes really, really difficult to try and retain a level of positivity because of all the paranoia. We have to have these firewalls in place because we're going to get hacked by the Russians and we're going to get hacked by the Chinese. So they build firewalls and levels of security into all their systems and systems that they have. All their servers have got double layers of security. And I think to myself, I don't know how these people sleep at night, because this is not the environment that we as souls are meant to thrive in. We are not just here to survive. If anybody told you that I'm just here to survive, no, we are here to thrive. We are here to be successful and enjoy doing what we're doing, put the fun back into what we are doing. And this is part and parcel of why we have relationships and connections with one another. And that's pretty much my answer. And I know it's only 4.5 minutes, but that's pretty much where I have to stop for now.
No, that's thank you so much for sharing that always, and this is, this kind of arbitrary 5 minutes, it's like whatever you got to say, you shared, cool. And I'll take some of your extra time and go to the next question. So first of all, like a mini apology, because of my lack of professionalism, I just missed Mr. Alberto Bonavides' question from last show. I did give him an answer in the comment section of the last show, but this is literally his question. I'm gonna have to interpret it because I'm not sure if I fully understand it. Last time we were talking about, I've totally forgotten what we were talking about. Do you remember what we were talking about last time then?
No. No.
Yeah, it's all gone. Anyway, that's how much we prepare. There we go. Anyway, do you think that religion can ruin consumeristic system? I mean, that reminds me roughly what we were talking about. We were like talking about being obsessed, something to do with consumerism or something. But anyway, yeah, it was something to do with that. And it was rich versus poor. Was that last time?
I think it was rich versus poor, and finding happiness and finding the balance in that environment. But yes.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, can religion help break? This is the way I understand your question, Umberto. Can religion break this over-reliance on consumerism? And I think absolutely it is the key and probably the only way, really, because you see, sometimes we think we can do without religion and we can figure things out. But let's just look at society at the moment. I'm in London. We're completely surrounded by people, and yet people are lonely, okay? Because this is a weird thing religion does. It sets better social norms. So right now in London, social norm is you don't smile at strangers. Okay, maybe in certain villages, maybe whatever. I mean, I actually make an effort to smile at strangers, but I kind of I have to assess the person. Like, I have to get a vibe from them, and if they're relaxed enough, they're not too angry looking, I'll smile, and that's quite abnormal in London. And so people don't talk to the neighbors, but I, of course, make a massive effort, like on Eid, and giving sweets to all the people on the knocking at people's doors and saying, here's some sweets, we're celebrating Eid, which is totally abnormal, but I think it's so important. And what I'm trying to point at here is religion is making me do this. Okay, so religion has a super powerful effect on humanity. Without it, we're really lost, and we can see like depression going through the roof all over the West. Okay, and that's because they're essential things that we need as human beings, which is connection, purpose. I'm not making these things up. There's a fantastic guy called Viktor Frankl, who was a top psychologist in the world, died now, wrote a book on man's search for meaning or purpose, meaning. Yeah. A purpose is a basic need of a human being. We think this is all wishy-washy stuff sometimes because we're so used to materialistic, simplistic view of life. Yeah, buy happiness, buy this, buy that, will solve our problems. But it's all these very delicate things like love and purpose and meaning and direction that really make us happy. So how can religion fix this addiction to consumerism? When it gives us all the other things we need, then we can become less dependent on consumerism. Consumerism is filling in a hole in our lives. We're so unhappy, but we don't know how to solve it. Or rather, we are so against the one solution that is there to solve our problems. And I can understand why people have gone against that one solution, which is organized religion. Like, organized religion is like a filthy word in the West. Okay, it's like organized religion. Oh my gosh, that's like oppression. And actually, there's a good reason why people think that, because for so many years in the West, Christianity, for example, which is, I believe in Christianity, the original form of Christianity, but the Christianity that came in the West was dominating and forcing people to follow the religion. And they didn't have a choice. And so that's why they had an aversion to it. And also, as Christianity developed, as far as I understand, they went from the real teachings of the Judaic law and just said, do anything you want. And it will be fine, and had literal teachings of, the universe was made in 6 days, which is not true to original Hebrew, which is 6 periods. So I'm kind of going into a bit of a far off direction, but it's like we lost true religion. But there is a lot of true religion. If you look at Islam, that it's intact. And it believes in all the other previous faiths, which totally makes sense, so it's not like a separate religion, and it has all the answers we need. There you go. Go for it.
Now, the only religious experience I have is the one of Christianity, and after 30 years of Christianity, I concluded no, religion cannot ruin or dissolve this consumerist system that we are currently living in. If you look at the big cities like New York, London, Paris, I find the energy very depressing. There's a very dark, negative energy hovering over the city. That's if you become energy aware, you feel the oppressiveness in that city. And that's because people are unhappy in such big, large clusters of communities. And I find that it's the toxic environment that these cities present themselves with, as far as working environments are concerned. If you're working for companies in something like New York, corporate law, you can watch legal programs like LA Law or The Good Wife or The Good Fight. Those are nice legal company programs. And you can see the toxic environments that these people work in and live in, the things they do, how they betray one another, how they backstab one another. We as souls are not meant to live in such situations and be successful at that either. So we find that the religion that presents itself, as far as Christianity concerned, yes, after the Council of Nicaea 325 AD, where the teachings of Jesus were literally chucked out the window, the teachings of Paul were imported, and they wander away from the soul, the alignment of yourself with your soul as your source essence. That's all part and parcel of how organized religion becomes a rejected religion in the West, and people follow spirituality rather than, because the spirituality is essentially what they sometimes refer to as the New Age movement. These predate, sometimes they refer to them as pagan traditions. These predate Christianity, but there's an essence of it that was true, which was finding an alignment with your source self, your true self, and then living within that alignment, because that's the place where you find happiness. That's the place where you find peace. So from my experience, My 30 years of Christianity and religion did not give me a way out of a consumerist society. It did not give me a way out of a toxic environment. I find that religion, especially in the West, tend to maintain control systems, political control systems. They maintain things that are no longer serving our highest good. And as a result, it's time to let it go. And this is where people will find Buddhism to a certain degree, because Buddhism once again draws you to a place of aligning yourself, balancing your chakras in order to find a place of peace, learning to work with Kundalini energy. And when that Kundalini energy begins to rise up from within through a meditative experience, it reinstates a bliss, a peacefulness, and a joy that you just cannot explain or experience any other way. And this is where the chanting the Om mantra from the Hindu traditions are so powerful, and even in the Buddhist traditions, because Om is the sound of the universe. It's literally starting with the letters A and O and U and M. When you Om, and when you do it like that, and you begin to feel the energy within you rising up, it literally starts with your legs and working its way up to your head. It's a very powerful experience to feel that. Now, that's a very simplistic way to say to me that religion did not give me that. Spirituality did, because for me, my experience was that spirituality transcends my religious experience. And even though I've only been on a spiritual path for the last 10, 11 years, I have gained more from that than I have gained in the 30 years of my experience as a Christian, in terms of my spiritual development, my spiritual growth, learning to awaken latent abilities within me as part of my soul development, as part of my soul's growth and experience. So this is where, for me, spirituality can ruin the consumerist society and systems, because it can identify the control systems in place that need to collapse in order for us to evolve, to move on, and to ascend to the higher dimensions.
Cool. Thank you very much. And I missed part of the intro, and you reminded me of it, Len, because when I have Len on my show, it's for part of the purpose was so that he will have a different perspective than me. So that's that. And the other thing I want to quickly mention is, feel free to ask questions. I probably didn't emphasize that enough. We've got loads of questions lined up from before, but if you've got a question, I'll check every now and then, and hopefully we'll give it an answer. But anyway, here's a question I received from a friend who's a regular viewer here. Is diversity and integration better for togetherness, which is the topic I advertised on the show, the main topic, let's say, or assimilation? So let me see if I understand it well. You've got diversity and integration versus assimilation. Okay, so I'm going to try my best to understand the question and answer it as best I can. Of course, if you disagree with me, if I'm misunderstanding the way you're asking the question, or what you meant by the question, please correct me in the live chat. So, is diversity and integration better for togetherness than assimilation? To be honest, I'm struggling to understand the difference between integration and assimilation. They're too subtle a difference for me. But let me just say, what is it? Or is integration important for togetherness? I think the focus shouldn't be so much on necessarily integration, but being of service and being interested in. So the most beautiful and paradise-like society is one where people are more focused on their responsibility than their rights. This is a very important issue that we really suffer from in the West. So in the West, we love to say this is my right to do this. This is my right to do whatever or have this. And people, if something goes wrong, like someone's being racist towards me or something, and really shouting out about it, which is fine. People shouldn't be racist. But when other people suffer from problems, we're not too concerned. We're not too concerned about the big picture of serving humanity. We're always concerned about our own problems. Now, why is that so important? Because you have to understand the link between these two things, responsibilities and rights. The only way you get your rights is if somebody else does their responsibility towards you. So you can't have one without the other. Now, if everybody's just concerned about their own rights and not fulfilling responsibilities, nobody really gets their rights. And that's why we have so many problems in society. Okay, government can't do everything for you. We have to take some responsibility ourselves. So that's where I focus on. Like, better togetherness happens when we're all trying to look out for the other person, smile at the other person. Then we get this idea of togetherness. Togetherness, is a kind of a weird word I made up that I've learned. I didn't really make it up. It's more like I learned from my spiritual leader called a Khalifa, for like an international spiritual leader for Muslims. And he mentioned this once, that the togetherness is happiness. And this is something so crucial for our lives today, when we're so lonely and we've forgotten this idea of needing other people. We ignore our neighbors. We think we sit in our corner in our houses watching YouTube and Netflix and whatever, and just being selfish. We're going to be happy, but we're not. We're going to be absolutely miserable, as society has proved right now. So what I'm trying to get to is, okay, so I talked about integration. Let's talk about diversity. That's a really interesting one. So diversity in religion is described as, we have created you into tribes and sub-tribes, the Quran says, so that you may recognize each other. So you might go, oh, you're from there, you're different. These are not the only parts of our lives. We can learn from all these different traditions. And we should, another part of Islam is always being humble enough. Actually, I'd say Islam, pretty every religion teaches you to be humble. Like Buddhism, I'm sure, teaches you to be humble and not arrogant, so that you become enlightened. So if you are constantly open to other people's ideas, diversity can really be a great teacher. Great. Your turn, Len.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I do find that diversity is better, because it inspires creativity. It inspires thinking out of the box. People coming from different diverse backgrounds may have solutions to issues and questions that you may not have considered. And having that diversity is helpful in any part of life for growth. Growth only happens when we are taken out of our comfort zones. If everybody was alike and everybody was the same, nobody would be taken out of a comfort zone to achieve something or accomplish something. As a result, growth would be totally stumped. So they won't happen. It just won't happen. So as far as the rights of everyone within the group is concerned, or everyone that your circle consists of, it's important to know that as long as we can respect each other's backgrounds and know that we are different, with that level of respect, I think it makes an environment that is conducive for us working together, living together, and being together in a harmonious relationship, in a harmonious situation. One of the things about understanding the self is that we are ego in our personality, but we are also, the ego is part of the conscious mind. We are also subconscious, which is the bigger part of who we are. It is very interesting to note from the psychological point of view, it's only the ego that gets offended. And if we are offended by something someone does or something someone says, perhaps that issue is touching a part within ourselves that requires attention, that requires healing, whether it be from a past life problem that we need to go and address, that we need to go and heal. So it's important to remember that only the ego get offended. And one of the verses in the New Testament, Jesus said, do not be easily offended. Why do you think a lot of lawsuits happen today? Because people are offended by what something else is or someone else is doing or saying, that's the part and parcel of the problem we're dealing with today is ego. And when we're living in a society controlled by ego, we are going to have a problem. And we need to recognize the ego, and we need to recognize that if we are getting offended all the time, at that level, we need to transcend that. The ego needs to know he's not in charge. The subconscious is in charge. The ego is only 5% of who we are. The 95% is the subconscious, which is the big me, the big part of me. And if you don't know yourself, if you have not learned to explore your subconscious processes, then you are not ready to integrate into the whole, because you are 5% and 95%, and becoming whole is about integrating these processes, learning to access the subconscious in order to create your reality of who we are today. Right. That part and parcel includes taking responsibility for bad choices you've made, instead of blaming other people for what goes wrong in your life. If you make the bad choice, you need to take the responsibility for that bad choice and find a way to heal that, to go back and fix that, or to say, all right, I've learned the lessons from this. Now I need to make better choices moving forward because I know better. So that's part and parcel of our evolutionary process, is learning how to take responsibility for the choices that we make and then make better choices. The problem I find in today's society with the way things are done is that there's always, in every storyline on television, and you'll notice that whether it be a TV series or a movie, there's always an antagonist and a protagonist. There's always one good guy and one bad guy. There's always the superheroes, and then they've got the supervillains. These pieces are opposites being pitted against one another, Superman versus Batman. Why do we have to have that? The reason we have war in this world today, and I'm dismayed at what's going on in the Gaza Strip today, over the last few days again, is the fact that these people have to learn to transcend the ego, to learn that we are all collectively one, and we kill each other when we don't need to. At soul level, we shouldn't be doing that. This needs to stop. And that's pretty much how I feel about it.
Cool. Thank you very much. Okay, so how can I avoid envy as it's making my life unbearable? And I think that's a great question as part of the overall topic of togetherness, although you can ask any question you want, doesn't have to be related to togetherness. I just picked a title. I thought it'll be a nice topic. But anyway, the reason why it's so important for togetherness is if you are envious of anybody, you can't really be connected with them. And envy really just kills any kind of love between people. I don't see how they can coexist, envy and love. And love is the thing that really helps you personally grow. So there's a beautiful teaching in Islam, or a set of, a saying by Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He said that you will not have happiness or paradise unless you believe, and you will not believe until you love each other, and then you will not love each other unless you offer each other this greeting called Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. So very interesting we can go into at some point. But the point is that why is love part of that chain of like things you need to do before you have paradise on earth, as as it were, happiness basically. Because what love does, it opens your mind to possibilities, it helps you create connections, and it even lets you love yourself.
Mm.
So you really want to have the opposite of envy, and that is love. So this is a real person who asked this question, of course, and he was saying, I really envy X, Y, and Z. And he said, what would you say if somebody said to you, he literally said, a Lexus, and I don't know, something about lots of houses or something, and you have nothing. What would you say to that person? And I would honestly, this is what I think I would say, because this is my instant reaction. First of all, I'd laugh, because like, I mean, first of all, who says you have nothing? But I mean, probably people do, right? Okay, but it was also this idea that I would literally feel sorry for that person, but I wouldn't say it to them. The first thing I would say to them would be like, congratulations, I'm so happy for you that you have a Lexus. And I wouldn't be sarcastic. It's good for you, great. Okay, I really hope that thing makes you happy in whichever way. I mean, I don't think things make you happy, but the way you use them make you happy. So if you took that Lexus to take lots of people around, your friends and family, and they had a nice journey, it wasn't so bumpy because the suspension was beautiful and the seats were comfortable, fantastic, that's really good, and I would congratulate them. There won't be this idea of envy. The other reason why I wouldn't have envy is because like I kind of just said, that things don't make you happy. In fact, as people get richer, and I'll just give an example. I taught in some really, really expensive schools. I've been work as a teacher sometimes, and some poorer schools. And the most expensive school I've taught in, the people were the least happy, almost suicidal. It's really crazy, because what they did. I wouldn't say money makes you miserable, but sometimes when you have more choices, you're more capable of making lots more dumb choices. So if you're really poor, you don't really have many choices, and your choices are almost by default going to be good ones, because it'd be like, okay, instead of just spending all my time in front of an iPhone because I can't afford one, I'm going to spend time with friends and family and stuff like that and have real connections. But these really rich people don't need anybody, don't need anything, and so they isolate themselves and they take drugs and all this kind of stuff, downward spiral. I'm not saying money makes you miserable. I think it's the options it gives you. So that's why I don't really have envy. And I even said to the person, I'm quite glad I'm not really rich at this point in life, because I can see even the little money that I do have is kind of spoiling my kids, and I wish I could be a better parent, but it's really hard to manage that. Like, all my kids have got their own phones and stuff, and they spend too much time on TikTok sometimes and whatever. So yeah, no real sense of envy, just love, and that will make you feel happier. And that sense of reality of money doesn't make you happy will hopefully reduce your envy, hopefully improve your relationships. Go for it, Len.
Yes, indeed. We all came into this lifetime from a hypnotherapy aspect, or the hypnotherapy point of view and soul angle perspective. We all came into this life. We chose the experiences we want to have. We chose the lessons we wanted to learn. We chose our exit route, and we chose whether we wanted to pay off karmic debt or not. Part and parcel of the lessons we wanted to learn was whether we wanted to experience certain things in a certain way. I find that if someone is unhappy, in this case, dealing with envy because it makes his life unbearable, the first few things I need to ascertain is, have you always felt this envy, or did it start at a certain point? Is it something that triggered this to take off in your life? Then that gives me an indication of whether it's a part of self that at some point got triggered, and most likely was from a past life issue, and you need to address that in order to heal that, to release that, to let that go. Now, we do have certain techniques that we can use in hypnotherapy to allow you to look at this thing as a monster. Imagine that monster is there. He's called envy, and he's looking like ferocious and furious. And then when you imagine breathing on him, and imagine that as you breathe on him, he becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until he's like a little ant. And then what you do is you just blow him away, and you visualize, you imagine this thing disappearing into the ether, and it's gone. That is a very powerful technique, because the mind cannot tell the difference between an actual reality and a visualized, imagined reality. So that's one way for you to deal with that. That's just a typical hypnotherapy psychological aspect, or an example of how to deal with negative traits within ourselves. But we normally find that envy would probably be a past life thing, and there would be something that need to be investigated and looked at and extracted, and then requires healing to deal with. So I would say, come talk to us, and we can see what we can do to help you if you have a problem with envy. I know the Catholic doctrine, the Catholic Church talks about envy as one of the 7 deadly sins. Have you ever heard about the Catholics' doctrines of the 7 deadly sins? I think there's a movie about that as well.
Yes, that's what I was thinking about.
But yes,
it's a classic anyway.
It is. It's important to know yourself, know thyself. If you wanted to go and do a bit of introspection, make a list of all your positive traits, all your negative traits and qualities. Be aware of your negative traits and qualities, because those may be aspects within yourself that require healing or require extra attention to, or so that you can deal with it. Or just the awareness already is a step in the right direction. If those things flag up in experiences in your life, things that trigger those things about you, then they need to be addressed, they need to be healed. And that's usually why these lessons come into our life. It's a lesson that will come into your life until you've learned the lesson. What is the lesson? If you've got a problem with envy, what do you think is the lesson? It becomes common sense at the end of the day. And the thing will keep on recurring and keep on recurring until you've learned the lesson, until you've let it go, until it no longer triggers you, until it no longer is a problem for you. You will keep on learning that lesson over and over until you finally resolved it. That's pretty much from the hypnotherapy point of view. And yes, if you're not happy with your life as it is, if you think you don't have anything or everything, if you change your thinking, we use our thoughts to create our reality. If you think positive thoughts, think good thoughts. Imagine yourself sitting in an environment where you have everything you need to make you happy. And right now, today, here, where we are now, here, I am happy. I don't need anything else. I've got everything I need here with me now. Okay, I may not have £1 million in my bank account. I don't need £1 million today. The money I've got today is enough to get me through today. And I learned the art, the skill of gratitude, saying thank you for everything I have today. And that, as a daily practice, begins to cultivate that positive energy within your life.
Great. Thank you very much, Len. Okay, so next one, completely different. I think it's important in its own very special way. What are angels? What sex are they? And why do they need wings? The reason why I think this question is really important, because a lot of religion has been demoted almost to the realm of fairy tales. And that's partly, you could say, to do with translation or understanding things literally. And so the idea of having, you know, these winged creatures doing things for us has kind of made a mockery of faith. But let me just rewind a little bit, because I do believe in angels, but very differently to maybe the way you might see in, I don't know, The Simpsons, where they love to make fun of religion. And that is that essentially the quick answer would be angels are laws of nature or effects of nature, or the power behind nature. And so they don't have a sex, just like, I don't know, wind doesn't have a sex or something.
Yes.
Okay. And they are subservient to God. So they're just kind of, you might even call it extension of God, right? In this materialistic world. So God is so far and above, or even you might say, I don't want to say aloof, because aloof sense gives a sense of like not interested, but far beyond our level of, you know, materialistic things, right? So he does have these kind of levels of ways of controlling things, or another way of describing it, he's very subtle. So he doesn't, God doesn't, he lets there be different layers between us and him, so that his presence isn't completely obvious, and he controls things through angels. Now, this idea of wings is also relevant in the Quran, but this is the thing I was talking about, translation. So the words used in the Quran, at least, about wings, so there's a verse of the Quran saying some angels have 2 wings, 3 wings, 4 wings, or something like that, right? And it is meant to say either something about their rank or their number of responsibilities and the kind of responsibilities. So there are 2 basic different kinds of responsibilities angels have. One is to run the machinery of our materialistic world, and the other is to communicate messages to human beings, from God to, so you amongst different religions, we in Judaism, Christianity and Islam, we have Gabriel, for example. So he is a very big responsibility. He passes on new laws to human beings from God. So they have different ranks. That's what wings means. They don't literally have feathered wings to fly around. That would be really pointless. It wouldn't even help, you know, if they're laws of nature, how do wings help? So it's all very metaphorical. So I think that is such an important question, because, as I say, we want to bring religion out of mythology and into reality. And so a lot of this misunderstanding has happened because we have gone away from the original text. So I was suggesting to some Christian friends, it would have been so much better for the Bible to have kept the original Hebrew, or if you're talking about Jesus' teachings in the Aramaic, and then have your translation, which could be seriously faulty or not. Right, so that's what you have in the Quran. We always keep the Arabic, the original Arabic, and then you have all sorts of attempts at the translation. So Arabic is a very deep language. You can't really translate easily because it's got so many roots and so many different meanings. Not random meanings. You can't have any meanings you feel like, but you can have a whole array of, you know, meanings, possible meanings, according to what we call the root system. And so that's a shame that doesn't happen. So, for example, just to go into the wider area of this topic, I was talking to some Christians about the idea of the universe being created in 6 days, right? So the original word in Arabic and Hebrew are almost identical, yom, which means period, but is badly translated into 24-hour days. You can't have 24-hour days if the sun doesn't exist. You know, the sun isn't the first thing to be created in the universe. So anyway, Len, would you like to have a go at this question?
Yes. Well, initially in my Christian world and lifetime, we had very limited access to angels and what these angels were. We only know about Michael and Gabriel, and that was pretty much it. But when I started studying the esoteric Kabbalah, the tree of life, and learning working with energies and so on, you discover the universe is really a multidimensional universe, a multidimensional multiverse, and you've got these 10 levels or 10 dimensions, as it were. And you have an order of angels, an archangel that resides over each of these dimensions. So each dimension has its own archangel, an order of angels, and you get a lot of names. So you've got the highest one starting with Metatron and Ratziel and Tzafkiel and Tzatkiel, and you have Michael and Raphael and Gabriel and Oriel and Sandalphon, and you have all these various angels. They are really just intelligences. I'm going to use the word, they are higher dimensional intelligences. We can't perceive them with the physical eyes. You do need your, what we call the third eye or spiritual eyes in order to perceive that. So there's a technique that you can follow in order to, with meditation, learn to develop your third eye, your meditational third eye, and begin to perceive them through this part of your pineal gland, if you want to call it that, third eye. Now, essentially, angels are non-physical beings. They don't have to be physical like we are. Anybody that claims to, I've seen an angel, you've probably seen the angel through your third eye, being in a trance state normally, because that's how they are perceived. And you will find, as Khalid said, they don't have wings. It's their auric glow in most cases that you may perceive, and you'll find that they don't have physical wings as such. You have angels that are assigned the specific tasks and roles as intelligences, and that's their skill, their expertise, and that's what they focus on. You can't expect angels to be miracle workers and wave a hand and suddenly you have what you want because the angel said that's going to be the case. Some angels have a skill in healing. Some angels have a skill in working on geometry and mathematics and things, astrology and things like that. So they all have their own skill set to work with. We are just conditioned to think they are feathered beings because of the writings that we have, that we follow, and that's not often accurate. I've actually got a very thick book here called the Compendium, the Encyclopedia of Angels, where you have every angel, the name, the skill set, what they do, and how to invoke that angel, how to call that angel up, and how to work with that angel, how to develop a working relationship with that angel. So if that is what you want to do, you can do so. It's part of the Solomon, the Solomonic experience. If anybody has gone into Freemasonry or anybody studied something of the work of Solomon, King Solomon from the Old Testament, he did a lot of work with the demons, the archdemons, as well as with angels that he worked with, primarily with Ratziel and Tzadkiel. So that when the Bible talks about Solomon asked for wisdom and understanding, in the Kabbalistic tree of life, those would be the spheres of what is known in English as wisdom and understanding, but it's known in Hebrew as Chokmah and Bina. And in Chokmah and Bina, those two spheres are high dimensional spheres. So he was working with the archangels, the intelligences of those very high 9th and 8th dimensional spheres. So it's not a physical thing from how we understand it to be in this dimension. Mostly angels are androgynous. They do not have a gender like we do. In our dimension where we live, we deal with duality. There's good and evil, there's north and south, there's opposites, there's polarity. Very, very important. There are other universes out there where they've got not 2 opposites, but 4. There are places that have 8. There are places, other universes, where they're dealing with 16. So trying to wrap your mind around that, good luck with that. Right now, I'm happy to deal with 2 polarities, 2 opposites. That's all we can cope with at this point in our evolutionary path. But yes, the higher dimensions do not necessarily have this duality or polarity like male and female, good and bad, north and south, up and down, east and west, that kind of thing. That is just part of where we are. That's pretty much my experience of angels.
Cool. Now, Len, I've got a crazy idea that was suggested that I didn't even tell you about. So I'm going to spend 2 minutes, 50 seconds answering this question. I'll give you 2.5 minutes. And then somebody suggested I should tell a story at the end related to the topic. So I'm going to give that a shot. Kind of like a moral roundup. Let's just see how that goes. So anyway.
Yes.
Thank you, Len. Len's just so nice. Okay. So how can I be happy? So we'll just do, well, Len gets it, and I'm sure everybody else gets it. How can I be happy when I am always working or helping with family responsibilities? So this is a question about modern life. There's just so much going on. We just feel like we're only surviving, you know. And like I remember Len saying earlier on, we should be thriving, not just surviving. Now, this comes down to one beautiful teaching that is common in Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, and this idea of God awareness. So in Islam, it says, for example, that if you, it sounds almost contradictory, if you have fear of God or fear of meeting God on the day of judgment, if you live by that, you will have paradise in this life and the next. Now, it might sound really strange. Maybe if I couple that with this biblical teaching, which is something along the lines of fear of God is the ultimate wisdom, or the root of wisdom, or the beginning of wisdom, something like that. Why? This is so key, but it's maybe not obvious in the beginning. If you realize, first of all, that there is a God that sustains this universe, you're totally aware of that, and then you realize it doesn't all depend on you. So you don't spend lots and lots of, like, you don't worry about working too hard or make, you know, so much so that you do it at the expense of, say, spending time with your children, because this is often the case. We work really, really hard and put all fun and life to one side. That's why we struggle in the modern world with this thing called the work-life balance, because we think it's all up to us. But if you are truly a believer in God, who realizes that it is God that sustains the universe or our planet, okay, it is God that gives us just enough sunlight so that we can, you know, grow food, and it creates the economy, and therefore somewhere in that chain you have a job because of God, then you stop worrying too much and you just say, I know God is totally up to you. And this is very much my experience, that I just do my bit and I sacrifice my time doing things like the show and for work for other people and helping other people. And I do that knowing that God is going to give me money one way or the other. When you live like that, you're a lot more relaxed, you're a lot more orderly in your time as well. You say, I've spent X amount of time, you know, on my work. That's my responsibility in some ways. But I have to have balance with that. Oh my gosh, I said 2.5 minutes. I'm going to give you, that's it.
But let me quickly, very quickly. All right. If you're not happy with the way your life is going, you need to start changing your thinking, right? Change your thoughts, because your thoughts is creating your reality. Imagine yourself in a better situation. Learn to raise your vibration. In fact, I think we addressed that all in the first session that you and I had together when we started doing this kind of thing. And I listed these things. Changing your thoughts to make your reality better by thinking positive thoughts. Raise your vibration by managing your time to have time for fun. Make sure you make time to have some fun. Okay? When I say raise your vibration, I mean do fun things that you enjoy. Okay? Find something to be thankful for. At least every night, they say happy people are people who find things to be happy for. That 3 things at night before you go off to sleep. As you drift off to sleep, say to yourself, I am thankful today for A, this happened, B, that happened, and C, that happened, whatever the case may be. But find 3 things to be grateful for, because that instills an attitude of gratitude, and that raises your vibration and begins to change your reality. So change your thinking to make your reality better, change your vibration, have time for fun, make time for fun.
Have another minute.
Learn to be gratitude. That's fine.
You all right? You don't want another minute? My story won't take that long.
No, that's fine.
You all right? I love the thing. What was that? Attitude? Gratitude?
Develop an attitude of gratitude.
I love that. Cool. Yeah. Okay. So, to do with this idea of togetherness, There's a beautiful story that I still remember from primary school. It's like crazy how I still remember this story. And it's all to do with how when we really appreciate each other and work together, then only then do we find happiness. And it's such an important story for our modern times. And it goes something like this. I think this is the modern version. And it goes like, there was a person who was about to die, and the angel of death came along and he said, you know what? Do you want to check out heaven and hell before you go to one of these? And said, sure, let's do it. And so he goes up to this building and there's a lift. And so he goes, I'm going to press up and we're going to go up to, no, we're going to go down to hell first, right? So he goes down, the doors open, and this person who's checking out hell for the first time is a bit surprised because there's a massive table with loads of food and people sitting on thrones like kings in front of the food. And like the person saying like, are you sure this is hell, because this looks pretty good? And you know, the angel of death didn't really say much. He like lets the person look a bit more closely, and when he does look more closely, he sees this really strange thing, because everybody has these massive utensils, massive forks and spoons, whatever. And what the result of these massive forks is that they cannot reach the food into their own mouths because the forks are really long. So obviously it's a bit silly, but this is a really important story if we understand the morals behind it, which is not finished yet. So he goes up, okay, I've had enough of this. You know, people are obviously very skinny here because they're not feeding each other. Oh, so I'm kind of ruining the story. They can't eat. And so go up to heaven, and the doors open and he sees exactly the same thing, or almost exactly the same thing. The same delicious food, the people sitting on lovely thrones, and but this time they're, you know, well fed and they're all really happy. And they still have the same massive, you know, forks and spoons, except for this time they're feeding each other. And that's, you know, so they, because you can't feed yourself with these forks and spoons, but you can feed other people. Now, if you think that's a crazy story, I'm going to explain why it's 100% to do with reality. Psychologists have shown we're happier when we give to other people than we take for ourselves. They've done experiments on this. We can meet our basic needs, but we can't really make ourselves happier by being selfish. And the West has done this experiment. That's why we're so miserable. So that's why something about this story hit a core in me since I was a child and has stuck with me all this time. And maybe that's why, because it's so true. Finally, I just want to do a whole load of thank yous, because Len, first of all, thank you so much. Here's I'm just listening to Len's 3 thank yous. Let's do 3 thank yous. I think he said 3 thank yous, was it?
Yeah.
Loads, yeah. Okay, so thank you, Len. I always appreciate it. Just Len being here is fantastic, right? Like, especially, you know, you can see how I do actually try hard to be organized, but everything sometimes, you know, often things go wrong, you know, and I'm always experimenting. So I just love Len's patience. He's like, yeah, let's do it, whatever you want. So it's like, all right, okay, cool. And yeah, so, and I've got a tiny little show, you know, 50 people might watch at this moment in time or something, not in straight away, but you know. So thank you, Len. And the second thing is thank you for all the beautiful questions. You know, people sent me questions and they're celebrating Eid and they still like take the time to send a question over or something. So I really, really appreciate that. People watching, thank you for watching the live show at the moment. Really appreciate that. And let me see, what else do I say thank you about? You know, I'm just so grateful about being alive, and I hope you are too. You know, sometimes we struggle in life, but I really hope that you find is the time over? Great. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. So thank you again, Len. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a nice weekend.
Right, that's enough.